Welcome to St. Louis on the Air. I'm Don Marsh. Today we go behind the headlines. It's a very big story for Missouri's 2nd District Congresswoman Ann Wagner. A bill she's been working on for the past couple of years on sex trafficking passed overwhelmingly in the House and has moved on to the Senate. It criminalizes advertising sex trafficking on the Internet. I spoke to the Congresswoman a few minutes ago about the bill and asked why, given the overwhelming vote for it, it took 2 years to pass.
Precisely the question. I will tell you, this has been a labor of love, but sadly one that was born out of necessity. And anything that's big, any piece of legislation, Don, that is consequential, is a big lift and is hard to do. So it's taken us a long time to bring all of the pieces of this landmark legislation together. We did pass the Fight Online Sex Trafficking Act of 2017 on Tuesday evening, and what's amazing about this legislation is it has a very strong criminal component. This goes after these online sex trafficking websites that have been selling our women and our children with impunity, and it gives prosecutors, district attorneys general, local and state law enforcement the tools that they need to really prosecute the bad actor websites, hopefully leading to more convictions, put predators behind bars, and I'm hoping ultimately that fewer businesses will enter the sex trade. So we are establishing a new crime that actually, under the prostitution standards, that says it is criminal for the promotion or facilitation of prostitution and in reckless disregard of sex trafficking. So they can use the prostitution statutes criminally, and they can use also the sex trafficking statutes to go after these nefarious websites. So you've got strong criminal component to this, along with a civil piece that the Senate was very involved in, and we were originally too in terms of authorship, and it allows our survivors to have the kind of justice that they need. So I'm excited about that component, along with also clarifying congressional intent when it comes to the Communications Decency Act of 1996. This will say that frankly, Congress has never intended for the Internet to be a red light district, not intended back in 1996, but the CDA has been watered down over time, and you have these websites like Backpage.com and frankly hundreds of others, Don, that are hiding behind the immunity clauses that were apparent in the Communications Decency Act. And we narrowly go in and amend CDA to make sure that we are clear about if it's a crime offline, it's a crime online. And obviously the Internet has developed a great deal over the last couple of decades. So this necessity the courts felt was there, and we put it there. So this has three very unique components, and it was quite the lift.
I'm not quite certain how local authorities, say authorities here in Missouri, could go after an Internet site that is located someplace else.
Well, they certainly will have the tools to do that. Like I said, both at the federal level, now through the statutes that are sex trafficking and prostitution, and then we're also going to be instituting this legislation through the 50 states. And I did meet with our leadership in the Missouri State House, and they will have the tools to also go after these nefarious websites that, again, that promote or facilitate prostitution or in reckless disregard of sex trafficking. So this is something that they have been asking for some time, and we're thrilled that we were able to get this done. And we are also going to be introducing this in the 50 states, and I hope Missouri is going to be one of the very first ones to do so.
That would be something you think could be handled this legislative session?
Well, when I spoke to the Speaker earlier this week, when I went down to file for office, he said that if, in fact, we got this moved and signed by the President, that they could still even introduce it this session. I'm hopeful for that. We did have good news on FOSTA, my legislation, yesterday. The leader in the Senate, Senator Mitch McConnell, said that he would bring it to the Senate floor the week of March 12th. And then I was very, very pleased to hear yesterday at the White House press briefing, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who said H.R. 1865 is landmark legislation. They're pleased that it has moved through the House. They'd like it moved swiftly through the Senate, and look forward to signing it into law. So, I think this is something that could move relatively quickly. So I'm thrilled to have been a part of this, along with 176 co-sponsors in the U.S. House of Representatives. This is a bipartisan, bicameral piece of legislation, and strong on crime, strong on the civil remedies for our victims and survivors, and also, as I said, having the opportunity to clarify the Communications Decency Act.
What kind of a dent is it likely to make in sex trafficking in general and internationally in particular?
Well, there are some. This is a U.S. piece of legislation. Certainly, this is a nefarious crime that, as we've said, has moved from the streets to the internet, and this is going to affect things, I think, remarkably in the United States of America. We now have the tools to say, if you are putting up and selling these women and children and young boys and men on the internet, we will go after you and prosecute. It is a crime. It is modern-day sex slavery. And I think that it should have a real dent because not only will there be criminal prosecutions, but again, I think it will serve as a deterrent to those that are kind of flooding the marketplace now and selling, as I said, our women and children with impunity. The National Center on Exploited NCMEC on Missing and Exploited Children said there has been an 846% increase in children being trafficked online in the last several years, and 81 are being trafficked in general, and 81% of them have been trafficked online. So, I'm tired of our children and victims being robbed of their basic dignities here, and I'm thrilled that we've been able to move through the process, through regular order in the House, through the Judiciary Committee and Energy and Commerce, and the leadership's been very supportive. It's been a long journey, but to be able to incorporate the concerns of our victims advocates, of industry, of prosecutors has been, as I said before, a labor of love.
Will it have to be reconciled with the Senate version? They are not identical, are they?
Well, what we did was we took my legislation, which is FOSTA, H.R. 1865, and we amended the Senate legislation exactly. So we added that amendment. Now, FOSTA is a piece that really has the strong criminal protections and tools in it. And then we amended the civil piece that the Senate has worked on. It's called SESTA, and I believe now it will sail through the House, through the Senate. And as I said, Senator Mitch McConnell said that he would do so the week of March 12th, and then I look forward to it moving on to onto the White House.
One final question. I know your time is limited. What else needs to be addressed in the sex trafficking issue?
Well, you can't solve the ills of society, Don, frankly, through legislation, federally or otherwise. Education and awareness is so very important, and I have been working on this issue for years and years and years, and we sit down with those in the hotel and convention and visitors bureau arena. We sit down with our transportation groups. We sit down with first responders, with law enforcement, those that are operating the emergency rooms that are on the front line, and with educators. I've met with every superintendent, counselors, teachers, have done seminars for them in the 2nd Congressional District and beyond, even in other states, to talk about this issue and say human trafficking and sex trafficking in particular is a hideous crime that is hiding in plain sight. It is in every neighborhood, every faith community, every school district, and sadly, St. Louis ranks in the top 20 of sex trafficking incidents that are happening in our country. So, education and awareness is important, but prosecutions and having the tools to go after these predators is important too, and then always giving restitution and justice for our victims, I think, is important, and something that they need for their own closure and for the absolute horrific life that they have been through. We work with our safe homes too. We work with so many out there that are counseling and talking to those that have been led into and robbed again of their basic human dignities by this horrific criminal act.
Clearly, a lot of work yet to be done. Ann Wagner, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure, Don. Anytime.
This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio, 90.7 KWMU.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association. Missouri produces wood pallets, railroad ties, white oak barrels, hardwood floors, and more. Details on the variety of products made in the state are at choosewood.com.